Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to Britain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Britain, where terrorists stand for government, which is spelt wrong, and soldiers are chased for false crimes. That's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. All right, because if you're living, unless you're living, let me change this because that's doing my OCD, and there should be an O there, right? Government, not government. I was in a rush this morning, guys. I was in a rush, right? So, if you live in the United Kingdom, it's all over the headlines that we are standing convicted terrorists for election in Birmingham. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm really not. I'm not making this up. And at the same time, it's out in the headlines that soldiers have been chased through the legal system in the United Kingdom for false crimes. That's where we are in the United Kingdom. So I've got a video to share with you guys to start with by, who's it by? It's a GB News video, but the video explains basically a couple of the things that I've been saying on this channel about the problems here with, look, we're importing foreigners, and those foreigners are having children, and those children are, they're just as British as me and you, because, they were born in Britain. So that's the bar. And then those people are then voting for whoever they want. And that's the democratic system that we've got. That's the system we've got. And this is how the fall begins, ladies and gentlemen. This is how the fall begins. So let me just share this video with you. If I can get it up, where are we? Yeah, there we are. Right, so I'll share this video with you. I will stop this at various points, and then we'll have a little chat about it.
Men in 1999 for conspiring. A convicted terrorist is standing for election in Birmingham. Shahid Butt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and also an Anglican church and a Swiss-owned hotel.
So just for context there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not making this up. We now have a man who tried to blow up, did he say the British consulate or the British embassy? I can't remember. Let's hang on.
Shahid Butt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate.
So, for those of you guys who don't know, you get in the Middle East, and I'm assuming other places in the world, you get a consulate and you get an embassy. An embassy is not quite a consulate. Sorry, wrong way around. A consulate's not quite an embassy. Like a consulate would not be the embassy. It would be like a building outside of the embassy. It doesn't have as much security. It's probably manned by local nationals, and diplomats only go there when they need to. So that's what a consulate is, if anybody's curious. But this guy, he was convicted in Yemen of trying to blow up the British consulate. It's not me making it up, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody's arguing with this. He's admitted it himself. There's no speculation here. And now he's standing for election in Birmingham.
And also an Anglican church and a Swiss-owned hotel. Well, he claims to have been wrongly convicted, saying the charges were not terrorism-related, and he was forced into signing a confession. Well, here he is at the Aston Villa ground recently saying how Muslims aren't pacifists.
You need to be earning halal rizq, and you need to be in that gym, doing that MMA, doing that boxing, lifting those weights, strengthening yourselves up, so that if anyone comes into your face, remember, Muslims are not pacifists. If somebody comes into your face, you knock his teeth out.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the gentleman, okay? So this is the gentleman who's now standing for election in Birmingham. He's saying that Muslims need to train mixed martial arts, train for strength. And look, guys, I've totally changed my, for those of you who've been watching me for a while, I've totally changed now. I can see what's coming, and I'm preparing myself. I am genuinely preparing for myself. I've changed my training regime in the gym. I'm now training. I'm not training for the long haul. I'm training for the sprint.
That's my message to the
So he's got a terrorist conviction, and he's advising Muslims to knock people's teeth out. And now he works for a community-based organisation to highlight the dangers of groups' radicalisation. Seriously. Let's now speak with the counter-extremism expert, Emma Schubart. Emma, welcome to the show. When I first saw this story, it was so astonishing. I couldn't believe it was true.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining for the first time, welcome to Britain, where convicted terrorists stand for election and former British soldiers are hounded through the legal system for crimes that they did not do. Welcome to Britain, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready.
But it is true. This individual has a conviction for terrorism. He's clearly a man who encourages, how should we put it, direct action on the streets of Birmingham. And now he's standing to be a councillor in Birmingham. How is that possible?
Well, it's pretty incredible that under UK law for local elections in England, there is no disqualification for an individual who holds any kind of past terrorism-related conviction. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to point out is that he is standing for election in a ward that is actually, as of the last census, around 80% Muslim. So all he really will have to do is mobilize the Muslim vote. And if he does so, then he will probably be successful in this election.
Do you think it's time bearing all... I mean, I was...
Okay, so just quickly now, going back on well, it's not historical cases. Ricky Jones, remember Ricky Jones, the guy who said we need to cut their throats and throw them in the river, or whatever he said, get rid of them. Remember Ricky Jones, right? Ricky Jones, the councillor from the Labour councillor. He was also a local councillor, and now you've got this guy, Shahid Butt. That's his real name, guys, Shahid Butt. You've got this guy now looking to get into local council. So my question is, if he's in local council and he's in charge of hotels, if he's in charge, whatever he's in charge of, if a Muslim comes to him and a Christian comes to him, and they're both asking the same question, which one's he going to favour? Do you know what? Even if it's very biased towards, even if, because, oh God, I need to be very careful what I'm saying here, because I don't want to be overtly negative, not overtly negative. I don't want to be overly negative, but we've seen this many, many times. For example, and I've got to give when I'm doing these things, I've obviously got to give precedence. So when Jess Phillips went into the what happened? So Jess Phillips went to hospital, right? And she was boasting that the doctor saw her first because of her stance on what was happening in Palestine, and she was like a pro-Palestinian supporter or whatever they call themselves. So the doctor saw her first. So I'm going to question if this gentleman and Ricky Jones are in local council, potentially in dealing with housing, potentially dealing with welfare. How are they going to react to the local population? Fascinating.
Speechless that you just told me that there is no criminal bar, there is no legal bar for which you're not allowed to stand. So if you're a terrorist in the past, no problem. That's fine. No, you spent your conviction. He claims that his conviction has elapsed, that it's a spent conviction, right. but surely.
So even though this guy's saying his convictions elapsed, if you guys, I don't know if you guys are just joining, but if you guys go back to what he just said, Muslims need to train MMA, Muslims need to take ready, because Muslims are not pacifists. If somebody gets in your face, you've got to knock their teeth out. That's what he said, right? I'm not saying that. That's what he said.
Help me out here.
So there's one relevant disqualification, but it doesn't apply to him. That is that if you've served a prison sentence for over 3 months, and that happened within the past 5 years, then you're barred from running in an election. But since his conviction was decades ago, it does not apply.
And so he can walk into Birmingham, he can stand in an area where he's almost certain to be elected. If you look at the demographics and the coalescence of the votes, we've seen it time and time and time again.
So let me put this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me put this to you. Now, Birmingham, where he's standing, 80% Muslim. Let's just say that 80%, they just keep on having loads of children. And I think they should. I think they should. I think children are fantastic. They're the future. We know now that the tax laws have been, the child benefit caps have been lifted. So any more than 2 children, the taxpayers will pay for that. So I think that's fantastic, because like I said, children are the future. Where's the voting going here? You see how the voting block's building?
In this new sectarian politics, we've seen it all over industrial towns. We've certainly seen it in these wards in Birmingham. There's no legal barrier to him becoming an elected representative of the United Kingdom, is there?
No, not currently.
Surely that has to change.
I think you're probably right, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think it's something that we should get MPs pretty mobilized about, given that the elections are coming up. I don't think it's very difficult to convince people that someone who has a terrorism conviction probably wouldn't make a very good elected official.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Great Britain. And listen, I am going to share that video. I'll probably share it another once because it's very important that everybody understands what's happening right here and people get their heads out of the dirt. Literally, get your heads out of the dirt. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Craig is saying, Sean, to me, that is inciting violence. I don't think it is inciting violence. Again, this is, look, what do I know? What do I know? Maybe by the government's definition, it is. But by my definition, to incite violence, you would need to say a time and a place. So, for example, if I was to incite a barbecue, all right? If I was to incite a barbecue, if I just said, right, everyone, let's go and let's have a mental barbecue. Let's just go mental with the barbecuing. That wouldn't be inciting a barbecue. If I said, right, everybody, get round to my house this Sunday, 2 o'clock, we are going to have a mental barbecue. That would be inciting a barbecue. So, however, that's my definition. The government's definition, the bar on the government's definition seems to be a lot lower. It does. AJ Aesthetics is saying Islamic extremists getting into positions of power in the UK. I'm sorry, but we are cooked as a nation. We are. Look, and I'm not, I get a lot of people in the chat saying, oh, Sean, you're defeatist. I'm definitely not defeatist. I'm telling you guys what's coming and I'm planning my escape. I'm also changing. Listen, guys, I'm probably going to do a members only video on it, actually. So yesterday for the members, right? I did a members only video yesterday and I'll probably make those live like next week or something. I uploaded that to TikTok as well, which I need to put on in a second. And I don't know, it just went live. So I pressed subscribers only on TikTok, but it went out to everyone. So I think in future, I'm literally just going to go on, I'm just going to do YouTube members only. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do it. Right, I'm just going to jump up. Munchkin is saying good morning. Regen X is, sorry, Debbie Doobs is saying morning. Tracy Doll's waving. Sean Parson is saying we've had terrorists in Parliament for years. Yeah, you could argue that, right? Barbara McGregor. Hello, good morning, Barbara McGregor. Debbie Doobs is saying we are a joke. I agree. It's ridiculous. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining for the first time, welcome to Britain. I did admit the great, where terrorists are standing for government and soldiers are chased through the legal system for crimes that they did not commit. Sounds like the A-Team, right? Sounds like the A-Team. Craig is saying, why is he not in jail? Look, okay, this is, I've told, there's a lot worse things happening than this right now, okay? This is the one that's been brought to the forefront because everybody knows about it. In a lot of these countries, right, a lot of these countries where people come from, Sharia is still the, they still live under Sharia. And under Sharia, women are punished by stoning. And I don't mean smoking something, guys. I mean something totally different. And if you look, guys, and I don't mean to be distasteful this early in the morning. Well, I said 12 minutes past 10. I don't mean to be distasteful, but if you know what stoning is, I'm not going to explain it. But if you think about that, right? Think about these stonings. A lot of people are coming over on the boats that come from these countries, right? Now, in those cultures, you might go to the stoning at the weekend and you might take your nephew with you who's like at that, how I always talk about impressionable ages, when children are at a very impressionable age, they're soaking everything up like a sponge. And that's molding them as a person. And you don't change that. You've got maybe from I'd say you've got between when a child is 10 years old, maybe 10 years old to 10 to 14, right? That's when they're molded. That's when they learn about the world. That's when they're molded into everything. Trying to change somebody's opinion after they're 14, forget about it. Good, done. Forget about it. It's waste of time. Absolute waste of time. You're not going to change those. You might, but in general, you're not going to change those people's opinions. So now consider a lot of children, when they're between 10 and 14, will go to a stoning, right? And they will throw stones. Think about that. I know the words I'm using don't really paint the picture that it should, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Those children then grow up. Just imagine, right? Some child may have thrown the final stone. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Some child may have thrown that final stone. He may get, that child may have a taste for it. Oh, I like throwing these stones. It's good. Then that child comes to the United Kingdom as a man, 20, 25, whatever. I'm a asylum seeker. What do you think that person's like? What do you think that person's like? That's a huge problem, ladies and gentlemen, and nobody's talking about that. Absolutely nobody's talking about that. Paul J. Conley is saying, morning, mate. Regarding my question on civil unrest, I'm sure you know what I really meant. Yes, I do. Cindy Archers is saying it's beyond disturbing. It absolutely is, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely bonkers McBonkers. It's bonkers McBonkers. Sean, listen, Craig, I totally understand, I absolutely understand. Lucy Conley, I would speculate, and in my opinion, we've got this two-tier system, but I would say, in my non-legal expertise, let me add that. I would say, in my non-legal expertise, Lucy Conley got sent to prison for less, right? I would say Lucy Conley got sent to prison for less. But look, what do I know? I'm not a legal expert, Keir Starmer and David Lammy, they're the legal experts. So, go with what they're saying. Right, let me turn TikTok on because I need to turn this on for quickly. Give me a second. Yeah, and my roof is an absolute nightmare at the moment, guys. It's coming down like a swizzle. It is. It's coming down like a swizzle. Oh, I'm going to get rid of this. Right, hopefully I won't get banned on TikTok now. Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everybody. So the crux of this live stream, if you're joining for the first time, and I know there's people joining on TikTok for the first time, we have been talking about how in the United Kingdom right now, we have a very peculiar situation. We have a very peculiar dynamic where convicted terrorists who tried to blow up the British consulate in Yemen are now standing for election. And I'm going to put it to you that this guy will get in, which leads us to the bigger question. All right, this leads us to the bigger question. What happens when he stands as a member of parliament? What happens when he stands in a by-election and he says, listen, I'll stand for you, Labour. It's a seat you're going to win because I've got the Muslim vote. What happens then? Where are the dynamics? What's he going to be voting for? Whose friends is he going to be bringing in? Where is he going to be sending our, British taxpayers' money? And at the same time, we have Keir Starmer out in France, out in, where's Keir Starmer? He's out in China. He's out in China, and he's bringing in deals with the Chinese that Donald Trump has already said is very dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, we are heading towards a full-scale civil conflict in the United Kingdom. We're heading towards a US takeover. We're heading to mass exodus of Western culture to Antarctica. We're looking at global conflict on an industrial scale. What a time to be alive. I've been warning about this for such a long time, and now we're seeing... And now we are seeing this, guys. We're seeing this as the fruits of our labor. And look, a people get the government that they deserve, and I really do believe that. We have been broken. Our own victory has defeated us as a once great nation that created the world. The British Empire spanned beyond, the sun never set on the British Empire. And that victory has absolutely defeated us. That victory's defeated us because we've sat back on our laurels. We've expected something else. And during the 90s, ladies and gentlemen, if you were in your mid-30s, early 40s in the 90s, you guys are the ones to blame. Yep, you are. You guys are the ones to blame because you guys are the ones that was in charge of everything. You guys were the ones that were, you guys were the head of organizations. You guys were the politicians. You guys were the main voting bloc. It's your fault. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, it's human nature. You get 4 cycles in human nature. Yes, you do. You get the strong generation. You've heard the meme, right? You guys have heard the meme. Good times create strong men. Sorry. Hard times create. You guys probably know exactly what I'm trying to say, right? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. We're in that cycle, and we will constantly be in that cycle. But hopefully, once this cycle's broken and we start going to the good times again, because Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, ladies and gentlemen, they are growing up in hard times, and they are going to be the strong generation. They are, guys. They're going to be a strong generation. Info Ground Zero is saying from the outside, it's like a dystopian comic from another planet. It is. The United Kingdom right now, we are living in dystopia. We are absolutely living in dystopia. I want to talk about the taxes quickly. So the amount of taxes we are getting in the United Kingdom is absolutely unbelievable. I was watching a video before, and it was about this. So If anybody's got like cryptocurrency, you'll know what the app Revolut is, right? And I'm not advocating for any cryptocurrency at all. But if anybody's got the app Revolut, you guys know what I'm talking about. Now, the guy who owns Revolut, he used to live in the United Kingdom, right? And he was paying, this is from the video I watched, he was paying $3 billion in tax. He got the super tax, right? So he's paying $3 billion in tax because he lives in the United Kingdom and his business is in the United Kingdom. Guess what? This is one guy, all right, and he's left. So he's left now, all right? So that $3 billion, it's everybody else has to make that up now. And this guy was doing and I look, guys, I can't be bothered to, I'm not going to do the maths on this, right? But the guy was saying that would take an extra 500,000 people, I think. Is it 500,000 people? That sounds a lot. He's saying, yeah, that would take an 500,000 people to pay his tax, basically. So one billionaire leaves, and the billionaires are already going. All that tax revenue is gone now, but don't worry, because the government actually see that as a good thing, because they see that as net migration going down. So now this guy who owns Revolut, which is, he's $3 billion a year in tax, he's gone. And in his place, we've got a new Britain from somewhere who came over on a rubber dinghy. So now the government are saying, yes, but one in, one out. We've been destroyed. Anybody with any sense, and anybody, listen, rich people don't fight. I'm telling you now, guys, okay? Rich people don't fight. They don't. Fighting's for poor people. Rich people make money and sit on yachts. That's the reality. And the rich people will be leaving. And once those rich people are leaving, where's the money coming from, ladies and gentlemen? Where's it coming from? Mary is saying there's a lot of things they dislike about British citizens and poor country. I think you mean poor country. So there's just the door, but right, okay. Mary D-E-C, is that Mary Darcy? there's a lot of things, right? I'm trying to read this. There's a lot of things they dislike. Right, Mary, I think I may be missing this context. There's a lot of things they dislike about British citizens and poor countries. So there's just the door, but no, don't like it. So let's just take over any way we can. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying, don't knock Gen X. Listen, guys, I'm telling you guys the facts. All right. I'm telling you guys the facts. I'm telling you guys the truth. All right. That's the truth. If you were in your mid-30s, early 40s, in the 90s, this is all your fault. This is all your fault. Everything that's happening now, it's your fault. It might not be your personal fault, but it's your generation's fault. That's the reality. And the generation who are going to have to mop it up are Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They're the ones who are going to mop it up. There's no denying that, all right? Look at the time frames, all right? Tony Blair got in jail. Tony Blair got elected, right? Everybody was cheering. Everybody was having a good time. Tony Blair removed capital punishment for treason. Tony Blair then opened the door to mass migration. War in Iraq. Everybody was too busy having a good time in the 90s. Everybody was too busy having a party. Oh, everybody's equal. Because what happens is, and I've gone through this quite a few times. And look, if anybody's upset, don't be upset with me. Be upset, if there's Gen Xers out there upset, don't be upset with me for pointing out the truth, all right? The war generation, right? The war generation. So they were like the 40s, right? So they come back from the war. They are a strong generation and they have their children, right? They have their children and they're like, right, we ain't having this. We are not having this. We are gonna build our institutions. We are gonna build this country, what we fought for, and we ain't taking no bullshit off nobody else. We ain't taking that, all right? So their children grow up and they've got everything. They're the boomers, right? They're the boomers. They've got the opportunities. They've got the strong institutions. They've got a strong government. They've got, they can make money. They can turn $1 into $2. £1 into $2. They're the strong. They're the boomers, right? Then the boomers have the children. Now, when those boomers have their children, those children grow up. Mum and dad are rich. They've got everything. Those children never see any conflict. They never see austerity. They never have to struggle. So they grow up, which is the Gen Xers, right? The Gen Xers grow up and it's like, everything is awesome. Everybody's free in the United Kingdom. Come over here if you want to start your new life. That's what happens. Their children are the millennials, my generation, unfortunately. Like the millennials, we were like stuck in between everything. We didn't really have the great struggle. Yes, with those wars, there was, but that's when it started. And us millennials are seeing this and we're trying to deal with it ourselves, but it's almost impossible because we're split between wokery and non-wokery. And our children now, if you're if you're Gen Zer, so if you're 16 and under, I always say that, it might be a little bit different, but if you're 16 and under right now, you are growing up. And what are those conversations at the dinner table? What are those kids seeing in the streets? What are those kids seeing on the news? Pattern recognition, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, you are at a very impressionable age between 10 and 14. You're at a very impressionable age and you are seeing certain things on the TV. You're making pattern recognitions. So when they grow up and when they reach their prime, when they're in the mid-30s, early 40s, how are they going to be? It's cyclical, guys, all right? It's cyclical. Don't take it personal. Literally, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. This is just how humanity works. And then that cycle will repeat. Because the Gen Alphas will grow up like absolute monsters. They will grow up the Gen Alphas will grow up as absolute monsters. They will grow up and then everything will be fine. All the shit will be squared away. Their children, they will be the boomers, the new boomers who go in, who build spaceships, who go, we're going to go into space. And then their children will grow up. Everything is awesome. And you have these cycles repeating. You can follow this cycle back through like recorded history. You're not arguing with me. I'm not knocking Gen X. I'm telling you guys human nature. It's just the reality. And there's no way. Gen X did see war. The Watchmen, what great wars did Gen X have? Honestly, what wars did Gen X have? There wasn't one. There was like a gay war in Iraq. Iraq was gay. They were running off mostly. Afghanistan, yeah, there was some shooting in Afghanistan. Right, everybody's getting riled in the chat. Look, you're not arguing with me. Look, you guys arguing. Look, guys, you guys were getting. Yes, you are. You do it nearly every week. I don't know what that means. War against woke. Silly Gallardo here is saying the thinking was that migration built up the USA to a superpower, but it's a different kind in the USA. They assimilated. In Europe, it's a cultural occupation. Thank you, Silly, for coming in and giving some sense. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining for the first time, we are talking about Great Britain. Well, it's not. I'm just gonna drop the great right now. We are talking about Britain, where we have convicted terrorists standing for government at the same time as we chase soldiers through the legal system. That's where we are at the United Kingdom at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, and it's wild. Things are going to get a lot worse. Right, I'm going to show you guys this video again. If you guys are on TikTok, you're not going to be able to see the video. I'm only going to be sharing this. You'll be able to hear it, right? So for you guys on TikTok, this is a video that was released this morning by GB News, and he's talking about how we now have a situation in the United Kingdom where it looks like we will have convicted terrorists now in government, and nobody can do anything about it. And I think that is a sign of things to come, ladies and gentlemen. If you've watched if you've watched my video last night. So last night I was talking about keep hearing weird noises. So last night I was talking about three elements that always emerge. Three elements that always emerge before the breakdown of a society, of a country. First of all, you get polarization. So us versus them. In the United Kingdom, we don't have us versus them. We have us versus them, allied with them, versus them, So absolutely polarizations here in the United Kingdom. You have the erosion of the state's legitimacy. Very hard to see how the state is legitimate right now. And a lot of people are, if we have terrorists now as officials, is it legitimate? And the ethnic replacement, ladies and gentlemen. Those three things that we have, I believe, in the United Kingdom already, that takes you guys to the candy shop, okay? So I'm going to share this video right now. This is a video from GB News. Please watch it, guys, because it is powerful. It is powerful. I'm just going to let it play. I'm just going to let it all play through in a wanna. I'm going to try. Who am I kidding? I'm not going to let this play through in a wanna. I am going to be stopping it at various points.
A convicted terrorist is standing for election in Birmingham. Shahid Butt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate.
Yeah, you heard him right, ladies and gentlemen. He was convicted in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate in Yemen. And that's not all. It gets worse.
also an Anglican church and a Swiss-owned hotel. Well, he claims to have been wrongly convicted, saying the charges were not terrorism-related, and he was forced into signing a confession. Well, here he is at the Aston Villa ground recently saying how Muslims aren't pacifists.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, before you listen to this, if this doesn't send chills down your soul, I don't know what does. This should send chills down everybody's souls right now, and people really need to wake up.
You need to be earning halal rizq, and you need to be in that gym, doing that MMA, doing that boxing, lifting those weights, strengthening yourselves up, so that if anyone comes into your face, remember, Muslims are not pacifists. If somebody comes into your face, you knock his teeth out. That's my message to you. If he has any teeth.
So there we have it. You know, while we're all, you know, while the British men, you know, strong British men are going to the pub and having a good time and eating nom 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 nom. It reminds me of this. There was a football game a while ago in I can't remember when it was. It was when was it? I can't remember when it was, but there was a football game basically. I've been done. I've been kicked off TikTok. I've been kicked off TikTok. Yeah, I've been kicked off TikTok. So I've been kicked off TikTok because of that guy, what he said then. Oh, God. Right, give me a second. I'm not going to bother live streaming on TikTok anymore. It's just ridiculous. I can't drink coffee. I can't share mainstream media. Literally, Shahid Butt just got me banned on TikTok. So there was a football game. It was in I can't remember where it was, but basically what happened was there was the British fans, and they came up against hang on, system notifications. Strike added. You've received a new live violation. Yeah, I'm banned from streaming on TikTok. Banned from streaming. Right. I do it every time to myself, don't I? I do it every time to myself. Right. Shahid Butt's got me banned off TikTok. So there was this football game, and there was Russian fans there, and there was British fans there as well. And the Russian fans, there was a documentary about it. The Russian fans had been like training in gyms to fight. And the British fans, they've just been getting drunk. And like, the British fans turned up there and they were all chanting, "Who are you? Who are you?" And going, I don't know what the football chants are. And the Russian fans, there was a documentary about, it's like, is it Russian ultras or something? And they'd been training how to fight in gangs and how to fight in teams. And the British fans just got absolutely like steamrolled. Absolutely. It was really bad. And then you heard these Russians saying, yes, these British, they think they know how to fight. And you've got like these, it was doing like cutaways. And you've got like these Russians, like 4 Russians in a line versus 4 other Russians in a line, and they're doing, they're practicing how to take people down and what to do, and it was carnage. It's kind of like where we are in the United Kingdom at this point.
So he's got a terrorist conviction, and he's advising Muslims to knock people's teeth out. And now he works for a community-based organisation to highlight the dangers of groups' radicalisation. Seriously. Let's now speak with the counter-extremism expert, Emma Schubert. Emma, welcome to the show. When I first saw this story, it was so astonishing. I couldn't believe it was true, but it is true. This individual has a conviction for terrorism. He's clearly a man who encourages, how should we put it, direct action on the streets of Birmingham. And now he's standing to be a councillor in Birmingham. How is that possible?
Well, it's pretty incredible that under UK law for local elections in England, there is no disqualification for an individual who holds any kind of past terrorism-related conviction. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to point out is that he is standing for election in a ward that is actually, as of the last census, around 80% Muslim. So all he really will have to do is mobilize the Muslim vote. And if he does so, then he will probably be successful in this election.
Do you think it's time bearing all? I mean, I'm speechless that you just told me that there is no criminal bar, there is no legal bar for which you're not allowed to stand. So if you're a terrorist in the past, no problem. That's fine. You spent your conviction. He claims that his conviction has elapsed, that it's a spent conviction. Right. But surely, help me out here. So
there's one relevant disqualification, but it doesn't apply to him. That is that if you've served a prison sentence for over 3 months, and if that happened within the past 5 years, then you're barred from running in an election. But since his conviction was decades ago, it does not apply.
And so he can walk into Birmingham, he can stand in an area where he's almost certain to be elected. If you look at the demographics and the coalescence of the votes, we've seen it time and time and time again in this new sectarian politics. We've seen it all over industrial towns. We've certainly seen it in these wards in Birmingham. There's no legal barrier to him becoming an elected representative of the United Kingdom, is there?
No, not currently.
Surely that has to change.
I think you're probably right. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think it's something that we should get MPs pretty mobilized about, given that the elections are coming up. I don't think it's very difficult to convince people that someone who has a terrorism conviction probably wouldn't make a very good elected official.
Say convicted.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we are in Britain at the moment. We have convicted terrorists. We have convicted terrorists standing for election. And I'm putting it to you that he's probably going to win that election, because where he's standing, as we just heard, is 80% Muslim. Leanne is saying, I forgot to check YouTube. Is there a way I can get notifications on here, like invites on TikTok? Right, listen, guys, if you're watching on YouTube and you click down there, down below, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching right now, can you make sure you like, follow, like all the buttons down below? So I think there's a bell notification, like down in the bottom. It's a little bell. If you press that, you should get notifications whenever I'm live. But listen, I'm live every morning at 10 and in the evenings at 8. I'm banned off TikTok. I'm banned off TikTok for sharing a mainstream media outlet article. It's absolutely crazy. It just winds me up, guys. It just winds me up. And I've got a strike now on my account. So if I get more strikes, I'll get banned totally. So I just can't stream. I'm just going to stop it. I don't know why I do it to myself every time. I do it to myself, right? Because I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to get everybody in. I'm trying to spread the message as much as I can. You know, I'm just getting banned like a dilly dand, which is not cool. It's not cool when you get banned. Debbie Doobs is saying TikTok is a joke. Yeah. So can you imagine it now, right? If somebody's playing and, if you've got the news playing in the background and somebody says something on the news, oh, I'm banned. It's ridiculous. Anyway, right. Let me jump to the bottom. Lots of comments in the chat. Northumbria is saying you must drop the Union flag. This is exactly why the indigenous on the Isles have no rights compared to foreigners, because anyone can be British. But the English constitution, not all can be English. So, well, I mean, first of all, we don't have a constitution in England. We have a series of documents that make up the English constitution. Yeah, that's an interesting, that's interesting. Maybe if we just had I've never even considered that. Maybe if we didn't have a British, it's in the house. Maybe if we didn't have a British passport and we had an English passport. Anglo Machiavelli is saying hit the bell. I don't have a bell. I don't know what that means. But if I had a bell, I would hit it. Maybe I need a bell. Gone Commando is saying, my mate moved to Aston because he likes Aston Villa. We can't wait long. We can't wait long. I don't know what that means. Leanne is saying, contains invalid argument, the message I get when I click the bell. Sorry, guys, I'm terrible with technology. I don't know what that means. I don't know what an invalid argument is. What is an invalid argument? Right, so let me come back onto this. I'm just conscious of the time, and I've not even touched the. I've not even touched about Keir Starmer chasing soldiers through the legal system. So, if you guys, unless you guys have been living, in a cave, it's all out in the mainstream media at the moment about British soldiers being dragged. And I did a live stream on this like yesterday, I think. So I'm not, I'm just gonna touch on it really. So the other day I did a live stream, and it's out in the mainstream again today. We have this, what would I say? This little gang of politicians, right? No, it's not even politicians. We have this gang of. Well, basically, the core allegation here against Keir Starmer is that Keir Starmer wrote a passage in when he was a human rights barrister in 2008. Keir Starmer wrote a passage in a book by this guy called I think his name was Philip Shiner. The book was called like The War in Iraq and International. I can't remember what it was called. But basically, this solicitor who wrote the book and Keir Starmer wrote in that book, Keir Starmer in Keir Starmer's chapter, he argued that the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, offered a more effective way to prosecute British soldiers. That's what, that's what he wrote in this book. Now, if you guys want to look a little bit deeper into this, Keir Starmer and this guy, Philip Shiner. So I think it's very noteworthy that I had this right now. This guy Shiner, he's been then struck off now, and he was struck off for fraud. And you know what the fraud was? The fraud was fabricating evidence, right? Fabricating evidence and pursuing bogus claims against British soldiers in Iraq. That's what he got struck off for. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but what I do know is that when you work at a large organization and something bad happens, normally they just, the lowest guy or somebody has to take the blame. And I'm not saying that happened here, but what I am saying is there's previous ties with Keir Starmer where he was working for free on cases in like the mid-2000s against the government, against the Secretary of State for Defense, or against the MOD, basically. He was working for free. And he was working alongside his friend who was called Hermer, who is now, I don't know what's his name. Is it Michael? I don't know his first name. But basically, the guy who's now Attorney General, Hermer, he's now Lord Hermer. I don't know if he was Lord at the time. Lord Hermer, Starmer, and Shiner, who's now been struck off and disgraced as fabricating evidence, they all worked together in, I think it was like 2006, 2007, to try and prosecute British soldiers for crimes in Iraq. And those crimes then, a lot of, I don't want to comment exactly because I'm getting into like didactics here. But that's the little gang, basically. That's the little gang. At the same time, we now have convicted terrorists running for election in the United Kingdom. It's absolutely crazy, guys. It is. You could not make this stuff up. Demery Gen X is saying, that's horrific. The witch hunt against servicemen. It is, guys. It's truly unbelievable. It is. It's true. It's crazy. Can you imagine, right, any scenario in the world where, right, in fact, let me give you this scenario, right? I've said this quite a few times, you know. I've said this quite a few times. Like, the only thing that protects the laws and protects your safety is violence. Violence is violence underwrites everything. It does. Like, violence underwrites everything. And I'll give you a little scenario now. I'll give you a little thought experiment, right? In the red corner, right? In the red corner, you've got the Attorney General of the United Kingdom, the United Kingdom's most leading, foremost expert of the law, right? In the red corner, or in the blue corner, whatever. In the red corner. No, go in the blue corner. Right? So this guy, he's got all his years of experience, right? He knows all the law, all the legislation. He knows all the precedents. And he's standing there, yeah, he's standing there as an absolute champion of the law. And in his hand, he's got, like, I don't know. He's got his legal documents, you know, ready to thwart anyone, with these legal documents. 30, 40 years of experience working in the legal system. He knows everything. You know, he can quote all these little articulations. And in the red corner comes out Yuri. Yuri is 17 years old. He's a Russian conscript, and he's holding an AK-74 with 30 rounds of ammunition. Who's going to win that fight? The bell rings. Ding, ding. You know, the bell rings. Ding, ding. Who's going to win? So ultimately, violence underwrites everything. You're driving on the M1, right? You're driving on the M1. And you're going 71 mile an hour or whatever. You know, you're going 71 mile an hour, and the police pull you over, right? And they say, listen, you know, you can't speed, all right? You say, right, okay, and you stop speeding, so you make it safe for everyone. I think 70 mile an hour is too fast anyway. I don't know why anybody needs to travel any faster. Set off earlier. So now you have that situation where if there's no violence to uphold that law, and the police say, can you stop speeding? People just say, no, stop speeding. Well, what are you going to do if I don't? Oh, nothing, because we're not allowed to. So ultimately, everything is underwritten by violence, right? At the end of the day, everything is underwritten by violence. So our soldiers, right? Our soldiers are the last line of defense against those laws. And you can't, guys, you cannot. Can you imagine, right? And I talked about this yesterday. Imagine like warfare, right? Imagine some sort of warfare in Ukraine, right? You're fighting a war in Ukraine, right? Or whatever. Let's go with Ukraine. You are, let's just say, for exact hypothetical scenario, British troops go to Ukraine and they end up in direct contact with the Russians. Let's just go with it, guys, right? Let's just go with it. 6 months deployment. At the end of that deployment, you know, 5.5 months into that deployment, there's a massive battle, all right? These guys, these British soldiers, they've been awake for maybe 2-3 days, maybe getting like 5 minutes sleep, sat in their kit. They're now on a front line pushing forwards, and there's Russian troops everywhere. There's bombs and grenades going off. There's like body parts swizzling through the air. It's absolute chaos and carnage. There's drones above going, boom, and just taking your mates out, and you can't do anything about it. Are we really saying that we are going to hold those gentlemen to the same standards as people who are not in a war zone? Are we really saying that's a thing? Are we really saying that that's what we're going to do now? so ridiculous, guys. It's so ridiculous. Can you imagine the stress that people are under? Can you imagine all the stress that people go through in these combat zones? People are going to come back with, look, nobody comes back from a war zone. The same person that goes to war never comes back. Never. They will change. You get post-traumatic stress, you get post-traumatic growth, you get all sorts of crazy stuff happening. So even if those people then don't go to the candy shop, they don't get missing an arm or a leg, they don't get blown. Listen, I've got a friend, right? I've got a friend. I've got a friend, he's been blown up so bad. He can't stop himself, right? When he eats something, right? If we go out for something to eat, he sets his watch because he knows how long he needs, and then he needs to go and sit on the toilet because he knows he just needs to sit there, right? These are the injuries that people have to live with. To go to a foreign country and to protect those laws. And then those laws that they protected are being used again. What? Well, at the same time, we're having terrorists standing for government in the United Kingdom. It's bonkers, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely bonkers like a donkers. It's crazy. Like, it's very difficult to even consider what's happening. Dewey Curtis is saying it didn't get post-traumatic stress, but certainly it wasn't the same. I'm assuming you're talking about yourself, unless I've missed your previous comment, which I don't think I have. Yeah. So what I was saying there, when you go away to a war, the same person never comes back. And when you get back, there's a scene right at the end of Lord of the Rings. Oh, guys, I love Lord of the Rings. It's fantastic. There's a scene right at the end of Lord of the Rings when Frodo. So look, guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? Lord of the Rings. You know the one ring to rule them all. It started with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves, wisest and fairest of all. 7 were given to the dwarf lords, miners and great craftsmen. 9 were given to the race of men, who above all else desire power, but they were all of them deceived. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So imagine and I don't want to give the war scenario. I'm going to give the Lord of the Rings scenario and then put it to people who are going away to a war, right? So Frodo comes from the Shire, right? One of these beautiful little towns like Crowborough, right? Like Crowborough. When people say to me, what is England? I will say it's these little villages like Crowborough. Beautiful little villages, like probably the most beautiful places in the world. When it's the summer, you've got the cricket field and the barley and the slow warm wind. It's just beautiful. Anyway, so Frodo, Gandalf comes and he gets the ring, and then Frodo goes on like a 2-year journey, right? He's fighting goblins and orcs, and he's like stung by a spider, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Frodo then, right at the end of the movies, he goes back to the Shire. And those people in the Shire, they're looking at him thinking, oh, it's that little roustabout Frodo. And Frodo's walking in like, oh my God. And it's weird for Frodo, because Frodo's clearly got post-traumatic stress. And quite rightly, he's just had to defeat the Dark Lord himself. And this is what I'm saying. Like, the same person never comes back. But the people back at home, the people who stay at home when you've gone away for a conflict, their life doesn't change and they're still the same people. And then you go back and everybody's saying like, oh, why doesn't he talk? Because I think they expect you to go back and go, hey, everyone, I had a soul. God, it was so like you come back from a holiday. You ain't going back from a holiday, guys. It ain't a holiday. Templar Matt is saying we need to protect our own country before any other. You're absolutely right. You're right. Rings up for sale. Are we talking about the one ring to rule them? Yeah. Can you imagine the ring rates put their rings for sale? Put them on eBay. Does anybody want to buy a ring of power? Zoop is saying ill. I don't know what that means, but okay. No, that was Bilbo. No, it wasn't. It was Frodo right at the end. like right at the end. They walk back to the Shire. And as they walk back into the Shire, they're having like a beer in the pub, and everybody's looking at them like they're the weirdos. Oh, Craig is saying, Sean, I wish I could join the army, but I'm waiting for surgery before Christmas. I found out I've got a brain tumor. Oh, right, Craig. I hope you get better. Really, I do. I honestly do. I hope you get better. I hope everything goes well. Mike Millman is saying, if Starmer takes us into war, there won't be any elections happening. That's why Starmer wants to go to war. When I first started thinking about this, it was very difficult to come to the realization. But think about it. Local elections are being cancelled to get to get people. Oh, right, yeah, we just cancel local elections now. Oh, yeah, we just postpone them. We're just postponing them. Oh, we're having a war. Oh, right, okay, we need to postpone the general election. I think there's a lot of truth in this statement, Mike Millman. I do. I think there's a lot of I think there is a lot of truth in this statement. If Starmer gets us into war, there won't be any elections happening. That's why Starmer wants us to get into war. Remember, right? There's another, what we on, 26. There's no elections due till 2029. So how bad do you think things are going to get before 2029? I would speculate that they're going to get a lot worse. Debbie Doobs is saying Starmer is not a wartime leader. I don't think he is either. I don't think he's, well, Debbie, I could admit the word wartime, and that I think we could admit the word wartime, and that statement would still be true, right? We could admit the word wartime, and Starmer is not a leader. That statement would still be true. Right, listen, guys, I'm going to close this down. I'm going to close it down. Give me a second, actually. Sorry, I'm just looking what's happening here on this notifications on TikTok. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Right, Pete's just saying appeal submitted. That really wound me up, honestly. Violent and criminal behavior. Violent and criminal behavior. Violent and criminal behavior from me. Not a slightest thing, ladies and gentlemen. I do not do violent, nor do I do criminal behavior. They are not for me, ladies and gentlemen. They are for other people. Northumbria is saying in England, the people in Parliament or positions of power should be English. Yes, they should. But then asks the real question, what is English? Like, what is English then? Because people will say, oh, but I was born in England. We are just absolutely, we're totally swizzled at the moment, guys. We are totally swizzled, and I don't see an off-ramp. Northumbria is saying in England, the people in Parliament or positions of power should be English. The same for Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Settlement Act 17. Oh, right. I'm going to have to look into this. The problem here is we're too far gone. We're already too far gone, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the problem. We're too far gone, and right now, the only thing that's going to restore what's needed right now, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think it's going to happen. But what would be needed to drain the swamp, basically, would be, and I don't think it's going to happen. I'm certainly not calling for it because I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it would ever happen. But what would be needed right now is like a French style. Do you know what, actually? I think people have become disconnected from what's happening around them. You know, people look at these, you know, pomp and pageantry of Westminster, and like, I don't think people understand that local government and local council and voting in your local elections, I don't think people understand that that will affect your life, I would say, more than the general elections. You know, just as like, if you think about it, right? When you vote for your local party, whether, I don't know, whether you're in like Northumberland or Doncaster or Devon or Cornwall, when you vote for your local, like at local level, that's gonna, you know, you're gonna vote for somebody who's gonna be dealing with your housing, with your streets, with your Christmas decorations, with your Christmas celebrations, with your summer fairs, getting your bins collected. That's the real stuff that's going to affect your life. When you vote for like a politician, like a lot of the way that politics works now is if you live in a Labour stronghold, they will parachute in one of their mates. What I mean by that is they will have somebody who's on the Labour, you know, he's a Labour guy now, and he's part of the clique, he's part of the club, he's a yes man, and they will just say, right, I don't know. I'm trying to think of somewhere. Scarborough, right? I don't even know what Scarborough is. Maybe Scarborough's Reform. I don't know. But let's just say Scarborough is a guaranteed Labour seat, right? They will send one of their guys that they want into that Labour seat, right? They will say, right, Scarborough, that is a definite win for Labour. So we definitely want this guy in. Right, okay, right. What other seats are there? Well, these are the definite Labour seats. These are the definite Conservative seats. So that's where we have our main players. That's where we have our front bench. And then you think, right, what about the seats that are not as guaranteed? You know, so we're not really, you know, we don't really, you know, this voting. And look, like, I think Rishi Sunak stood in Richmond, right? Rishi Sunak stood in Richmond. He doesn't live in Richmond. He doesn't, you know, what does he know about, you know, what does he know about the historic, what does Rishi Sunak know about the historic market town of Richmond in North Yorkshire? I would say very little. What does he do for the historic North Yorkshire market town of Richmond? I would say, I know Rishi Sunak's, you know, but so that's what happens. You know, that's what happens. You know, when you vote in a national election, it doesn't, I would speculate it doesn't really affect your life that much. When you vote in your local elections, that's gonna have some direct influence. Right. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down now. Hang on. Drew Curtis is saying we pay for the government to do crimes against us, then cover up. You know what we do? We absolutely do. Not only that, if you look at the housing market right now, you know, if you guys look at the housing market right now, we literally have our own government outbidding us with our own tax money. Think about that. Our own government are buying and rent or leasing houses from people at a higher rate with your tax money. So you're working every hour God sends for the government to outbid you on your own house. Crazy. Like, you could not make this up. And all the time, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Britain, where we have terrorists standing for government and soldiers are chased through the legal system for false crimes that they never committed. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. Make sure if you're on, you've liked, comment, subscribe. Those buttons down there really helps us out. You guys have seen how much I get banned. I've just been banned on TikTok. I'm not allowed to live stream anymore. I've got another strike. I've got another strike against me. I'm just going to stop it on TikTok, guys. I can't be bothered. Anyway, I'll be back. If there's any breaking news, I'll be back on later on in the day. If not, I'll be back on at my normal time tonight at 8. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, it is a Friday and bonkers things normally happen on a Friday. I bid you good morning. I'll see you guys later.